Hello, and welcome to the Magic is Real podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical and spiritual. We talk about near death experiences and other spiritually transformative experiences. And I'm excited that we have branched off into one of my favorite areas of interest, which is a lot of self-help and spiritual growth. That does not mean that there will not also be more near-death experiences to come, but I'm really liking where this is going, and I hope that you're enjoying it too. Let me know how you're feeling about it. And just before we start, I just wanted to ask a little favor that would mean so much. If you like this podcast, the best way to support for free on your end is to subscribe if you like it, share with friends, just to hit the like button. That's really helpful. And comment below, even if you just have time to drop a little heart. Thank you so much. It helps the podcast grow. So, with that being said, I want to introduce today's guest, who is Victoria Pippo. I'm very excited to have her. I do follow her on the Instagram, and she is extremely wise and insightful and a beautiful human. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She is more than just a spiritual teacher. She is a spiritual teacher, but she's more than that. She's a living embodiment of energy mastery. She used to be a child actor, like me, an addiction survivor. I love to talk about that. Queer woman to soul strategist, Victoria has walked through it all. Now, as a psychic gatekeeper and disruptor of the spiritual norm, she teaches high level entrepreneurs, healers, and public figures to protect their energy and reclaim their divine power. She's the founder of the world's leading psychic development school, Vic- um, and her teachings go beyond surface level spirituality. She helps her clients develop true discernment, dismantle new age illusions, and connect with their soul in a real, raw way. No fluff, no fakery. That is what we like. And I've heard Victoria say that her school is a sort of a modern day Hogwarts, which we love. So I'm very excited to have you here, Victoria. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my goodness, Shannon, this is the first podcast I've been on where someone introduces my queerness, which I love so much. Like where addiction and queerness and spirituality, there's so many different facets, and I'm very thankful that was the introduction that got to weave us
Oh,
into today's
good. I
conversation.
like to talk about all the human things
I
because
love it.
I want to get to know you. And obviously, we are not our, you know, our. We'll talk. We can talk about that, like identity versus our spiritual self, and how we identify in this world and what we resonate with. So I think it is important because it's what makes us us. It makes each of us individual. And while I very much believe we are literally all one, we are divided into these bodies to have these experiences so that we can learn different things. And if we were all the same, how could we possibly learn? And how would there, and unfortunately, there conflict arises over these things, which seems so silly, but it's so real. And
Mhm.
through that conflict, we can grow and find love in ourselves. But I would just love to hear your story, your general story, however you want to tell it, whatever you're comfortable sharing, your spiritual journey.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, so to your point, I was a child performer. From the young age of 7, I think my mom had an understanding that I was unique. I was really called to art and to music and to play and create. And so my mom put me into child performing. I was an actor at first for like this small community theater in my town called Leamington, Ontario, which is actually like the tomato capital of the world. And so I was like a little tomato. And so I would do little tomato community theater. I would do singing competitions in the tomato capital. And I found myself naturally succeeding and finding a lot of healing and permission in performance. From a young age, I told my mom I wanted to be an actor. I felt like I'm going to go to Broadway. And I'll never forget the day in first grade, my French teacher said to me, like, you need to dream smaller. Like, that's never going to happen for you. And obviously, once you hear the rest of the story, I obviously didn't listen to her advice. If anything, it kind of catalyzed me to do more. And so I pursued this dream as far as I possibly could. I went to a private boarding arts school at 14 to pursue acting and performance. So I went to Interlochen Arts Academy, for those of you who might be familiar, moved to Michigan internationally, Then I went to get my Bachelor of Music and Musical Theater in Ohio, actually Cleveland, Ohio, to a school called Baldwin Wallace, and graduated with an agent, graduated with no money, but a dream. Again, the starving actor, got to make it work. This is the dream. You got to do what you got to do to make it happen. And so I moved to New York and ended up, by the grace of God, booking job opportunities to go work for Disney Cruise Line. So I worked with Disney Cruise Line for a few contracts. However, towards the second contract in the beginning, so Disney works where you're on the ship for 6 months and then you take time off. If they choose to call you back for a different role, they will. If you don't get the job. It's kind of just how it works. And so I got called back for my second contract. And at that time, I had pursued positive thinking, let's call it that, like the very baseline of meditation, of self-help, of personal development, but very much like attracts like, you create your reality, a positive thought creates a positive reality, which no knocking that. That is extraordinary if you can get to that point of your awakening where you're at least realizing that maybe you have a different choice. However, beginning of my second contract, I had an extraordinarily painful relationship fall apart. And this catalyzed this deeper realization of the driver behind all of my performance career, basically. What was driving the reason why I was aiming for this goal, to which, through unpacking this, I looked at my childhood when my parents had had multiple divorces in the first 7 years of my life. Actually, both my parents got remarried 3 times each to different partners. So I had 6 parental figures in the predominant time of developing myself. So basically, everything in life was escapism, abandonment, and loss, really. So from there, that also kind of weaves in the addictive story because now I got addicted to this goal. And through this addiction to this goal, naturally, substances started to play a role in my life during college when, people were handing out Adderall like it was like candy. I started to get addicted to the upper energy, trying to stay in this upper realm where I could do anything and I could make it happen and I could complete, accomplish, make things happen for me. And so addiction was woven into this. And when I had my awakening on the second contract with Disney, I was looking at this being like, it is so clear that my childhood of being abandoned or feeling abandoned anyway led me to addictive patterns, aiming for a dream and really escaping through the dream, trying to find nirvana through fantasy, if you will. And when I had my awakening, that's really when everything started to crash. So that's kind of how I weave in, childhood stuff, performance and addiction, and how that cataclysmic moment of relationship failure, realizing that really all of my relationships had failed for the same reason. That was finally the relationship that made me go, wait, there is a common denominator, and it is my past.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I love this because I had my spiritual awakening also because I'm a sex and love addict. And of course, I've done so much work. I'm writing a book about it and about how these, and just had a conversation with a friend today who had a very, very abusive borderline mother and how it's affected her relationships today and why she jumps when she hears certain noises. And I
Mm,
was sort of going back to how I find it so interesting about certain things that happened in my childhood, not my parents, they've been amazing, um, formed my attachment and how you've said that relation, and I've heard this, and I also loved the way you said it, that relationships, intimate relationships, serve as a mirror,
hmm.
and that's why they're important,
Yes.
because they are reflections back to us. And even if you're the quote unquote victim, let's just say that the other person was abusive. And that hasn't happened to me, but let's just say that you're sort of the one that's been in it. They're the sort of more unhealthy one, but why are you attracted to
Yeah.
that? Or why does that feel comfortable and safe? Why are you addicted to the toxicity or the intensity or the passion? And
Yeah.
why is it hard to have calm, nervous system
Mhm.
regulated relationships? If that's the case for you, which it may not be. But
Totally.
so I love that. And I had the spiritual awakening through that process as well. So I'd love to
Mhm.
hear more.
Yeah. You know, and especially how my queerness kind of intersects with that because when I had my awakening and it fell through, from a romantic relationship, I realized that the big theme in all of the dynamics was assuming that love was about loss. And of course, I think we can all agree that when you get in a relationship with someone, you hope it's the right person. Certainly, that I think is what we're all in some ways in it for. But there's also the gamble that you could lose.
Oh, yeah.
My entire life, especially in intimate relationships, really felt like I was playing to lose. And I was hoping that they would choose me. And so that's a very interesting pattern to play out in intimate relationships where you're like, I assume you're probably going to leave anyway, but I would love it if you could choose me and continue to choose me over and over and over to try to soothe this part of me that felt like no matter what you wouldn't anyway.
So relate with that.
Right? It's like, it was like the rose and the thorn at the same time. It was like, I want this and I know that this is so beautiful. And also, can you just like make it a little bit more toxic so that I can continue to like perpetuate this pattern as well? And so, after this falling through happened in this relationship, and I started deeply meditating, now actually on the quest of what are these patterns? Why am I here? Where is this coming from? And around this time, I had some spiritual experiences that had happened. I started to connect with spirits. That was kind of deeper meditation, opened up the veil. I started to connect. How that kind of wove into my partner at the time, now my future fiance, I had had an experience with a woman on the ship. And just to kind of give you a little backstory, we were in Jamaica and everybody had been drinking. And at this time, I was on a cruise ship in my mid 20s, drinking on a boat. Like it was
Of
what you would
course.
expect, right? And I guess there was this girl that was there and she was on the ship with me. We didn't really know each other, but then we started flirting apparently. Now, I don't remember much of this, but I apparently also told her that I found her to be quite sexy. And this was like the first real time in college I had dabbled and was like, no. And, it was like not really committal. And so I got her number and she reached out to me and was like, did you mean it when you called me sexy? And when I was sober, I was like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, I could just pretend, like, no, I didn't mean that. Sorry, I had a bit too much to drink. Or I could try to like lean into this because clearly there's a part of me that's attracted to an essence. And I was attracted to this essence. And I finally felt like through my deeper inquiries of myself and realizing like I had been a predominant player in some of my abandonment patterns. And I had started to kind of peel those apart. I was like, I'm actually kind of, yeah, I did mean that. And so I explored with this woman a little bit, just feeling intimacy. How does that feel, woman to woman? What is that experience like? And then I got off the ship and we lived on different sides of the world and things just kind of naturally, fell apart. But I was able to own that maybe I was a little bit more fluid in my sexuality. And if I'm really honest, I don't even particularly identify with queerness. I really just identify with being a soul that really, when it gets down to it, everybody is attractive if you sit long enough and release the Disney programming. No pun intended. Like, release someday my prince will come and he'll look like this and he'll feel like this and we'll be attracted like this and we'll reproduce like this. If we just like open our heart to how else we can experience attractiveness, I found that that kind of opened up my queerness because I realized that that's actually how I wanted to experience love. I wanted to be loved for who I was. I wanted to be loved however I wanted to explore myself. And I wanted to love beyond that Disney programming of like, boy, girl, we get this. And this woman to woman experience opened that up for me. A few months later, I meet what is now my soon to be husband. But when we first met, he was a female. And I have been with my partner now for 5 years as they have been transitioning genders.
Congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
engagement and and
Thank you.
finding a love.
Thank
That's
you.
beautiful. I'm really glad to hear that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would love to also hear about when you said that you started to meditate and connect with spirits. So I too am a medium and psychic medium, whenever I don't know what you prefer. I have been taught and understand that all mediums are psychic, not all psychics are mediums.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I'm sure there's exceptions, but how did you know you were connecting with the spirit world? What happened that you would qualify as an awakening versus just an experience?
Oh, well, I had an undeniable experience with a spirit. And so, backstory, I was deep in meditation pretty much every day. I loved guided meditations that were taking me somewhere. And at the time, I didn't really think, at least what I think now, which is, to be cautious, be mindful where these guides are taking you, where are you going? Like there was no harm, no foul at this point of my spiritual awakening journey. And it just felt so good to explore myself. And so I would get deeper and deeper and deeper into meditation. And when I did, I started to get these feelings. So the first most notable one was I started to feel this breath of air on the left side of my body. And I was in a cabin. My room was like the size of a fridge. It was so small. There was no way that I could possibly mimic or create whatever this wind pattern was that was happening on the left side of my body. But as humans are skeptics, I started to meditate in different places. And yet, that breath would follow me. I'd get deeper into meditation and then I would feel like this click and I would start to feel this presence. Now, just for context here, I was living on a cruise ship. Wi Fi was very expensive. I didn't learn psychic development from anybody at that time. So everything was no access, pure raw experience, no filter to go, oh, that's clairsentience opening. It was just, what is this breath of air and what is happening? So I didn't have a frame of reference other than this beautiful experience that was happening to me. And I think that's actually partly why I grew so fast because I didn't have bias. So kept meditating, starting to really inquire about this. And then one day I was quite deep in practice, and this voice came through, as clear as you and I are having this conversation, and said, I am your grandfather. I'm your spirit guide, and I've been with you your whole life. Now, I've never met my grandfather. I knew nothing about him, but I did know that that was my mother's father who had passed when she was quite young. And so I ran upstairs after my practice and I called my mother because now I want to understand. Because when I woke up, I was aware of, wait, these patterns happen because of childhood. So now I'm thinking, were there patterns of being psychic as a child? And so I asked my mother, did I ever tell you that I talked to grandpa as a child? And she said, you would always say, grandpa's here, grandpa's here. Around age 2, 3 years old, you'd walk around the house and talk about how grandpa was around. And then I said, did he ever favor a side of the body? Like if grandma was standing, like would I point and say, grandpa's here? She said, yeah, always to the left side. And the left side is where I felt that breath of air. And I felt
Oh,
it was like
wow.
one of those moments where it's like I felt like my brain was connecting a dot. And it was like, those mind blown gifs or emojis, if you could imagine, like the mind blown emoji with the brain
Yes.
that's like all fuzz. That's what it felt like for me in that moment. That was the synergy between me piercing the veil and how everything had led up to that culmination point of miracle moment of connecting with spirit. And so that's kind of how that started. And it just never stopped connecting since.
That's so cool. When you were talking about that, I started to feel spirit. I always feel it on one side. I don't know why, but it's my feeling is you do you still well, you can tell me if you still have that breath thing, or if it's changed over time, but I get what I call spirit tingles. It starts at the
Yep.
crown of my head, but it goes all the way down my right side. And for some reason, and it's there now, going down it's my right thigh that
Huh.
it goes down, and I don't differentiate between feminine,
Yep.
masculine in that way. It just is whoever's there. I just know I have a spirit with me when I feel that feeling. I'm like, "Oh, there's someone here."
Yep.
And then I say, "Okay, tell me who it is." And funny enough, I heard Roland, and I don't know if that means anything to you, but I was like, maybe that's a spirit guide, who knows? But I usually wait to just say, "Who is it?" And then I hear a name, and then
Yeah.
I say, "Okay." I mean, spirit guides don't always give you a name because they're
Yeah.
not concerned with names the way that we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
But so I kind of take that with a grain of salt. But tell me more. And about, actually, we can talk about spirit guides right now if you like, if you have something to share
Sure.
about that, because I'd love to know more.
Yeah. So to your point, I do still feel the left breath of air.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just, it's with a different guide now. So I'll share a little bit of context now here. So after that experience with my grandfather, well, of course, I was just obsessed.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this experience is happening, and I'm talking to my grandfather who died. Like, wow. And so I followed that and I started to develop channeling. So it started with, little message, and I would have my eyes closed because something would be coming through. I'd never had that happen before. And again, I didn't have any context for how to learn how to channel. So I'd write down these little messages that he would give me. And we would develop that relationship. And then when I got off the cruise ship, I still had this beautiful relationship. When I would, open up my channel, I would call him forward, and we had this really symbiotic relationship. And I would say maybe 2023. So this is 2020. He was my guide up until I'd say like end of 2022 into 2023. And how I noted that was that I wouldn't feel that same presence.
Uh-huh.
When I would plug in and connect, there was absence. And there was always this very clear, warm presence, left side. You got familiar with the frequency, right?
Interesting.
You know your guides, you know how they feel, how they connect with you, and what their kind of essence is. I felt it disappeared one day. And then when I would invoke it, it would be kind of gone. And so then, next thing you know, I had an extraordinary experience where a new guide came in. And then a few weeks later, another guide came in. And then a few weeks later after that, my third guide came in. And now I know exactly who my guides are, but they're all extraterrestrial life forms. So there was this shift because around this time of growing as well, I kind of moved out of like the ancestral healing. Like I felt like I had done a lot of my work in my bloodline where he could graduate his soul
Yeah.
contract to support me. And so what I found to be true about guides, a lot of times, at least with the clients I serve, is that a lot of their guides in the beginning of their awakening are more ancestral, generational, more lineage based guides. And then when they kind of cross a threshold through clearing some of those major pieces, then the next iteration of spirit guides will come in. For me, because I'm super galactic and a lot of what I do is channeling, a lot of what I do is really a significant removal, entity removals, things like that. My guides are very strong in strength in terms of like being guards. So they guard my energy a lot more. Their advice is not constant. It's more so like, this is where we're going. This is what we got to do. It's like it's shifted from being my spirit guide to what I now call like my team of spirit. And those energies feel different for me. And I think there's a transition that happens the more you cultivate what's here and you work with the spirits that are here and you work with the guides that are here. And then you naturally graduate into like another iteration of guides that become more of a team and a little less, at least in my experience in the beginning, a codependent relationship with your dead grandpa on the other side.
Yeah. What kinds of things did grandpa tell you or share with you?
Oh, well, in the beginning, it was so much about like, you're here to help and heal people. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I'm here to help and heal people? I'm a Disney performer playing Mary Poppins. Like, what do you mean? It's things about you're here to help people in big ways. Or, I've been with you your whole life to help you learn how to be able to heal other people. I'm here to support you in being able to step into your role as a healer. And I started to notice shifts in my energy around this time too, where then I would engage with the world on the ship and people would just naturally
Hmm.
connect to me more. It felt like people were naturally guided, like your presence is so kind, like you're so sweet, like tell me more about this. Or next thing you know, I'd be like coaching one of the lifeguards that was on duty, just saying hello. There was more of this kind of gravitational pull as I was also receiving insight from him about being a healer, being on this path of being a healer, and him helping me, saying, you're here to help heal the world. You're going to do big things. Like that was a lot of the guidance I was getting that yeah, because at the time as well too, my channel wasn't so open that I couldn't have like full dialogues. It was like help heal,
Hmm.
heal the world, and then like little intuitive hits about like create a YouTube or create a Instagram thing about healing your heartbreak or write this poem, like follow your heart on this. Like I would get more intuitive knowings and then like little words about how being a healer.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's true because as a medium, I identify as a medium more than a psychic. I have people have come to me for psychic readings, and I don't prefer it for myself only because I can't validate it
Yeah.
right away. So I'm like, I hope I'm right. I feel this with mediumship. I can validate it instantly, and so prefer that. However, when
Mm.
we receive our information, right, it comes because spirit's at such a fast vibration, and we kind of have to meet them in the middle where we have to raise our vibration a bit to meet them, and they have to come a little bit down into the denser world to communicate, and they're communicating telepathically. So they can only give us symbols or little words because we wouldn't, yeah, we wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to absorb it all.
Totally. And we have to like become these decoders, or you have to
Yep.
learn how your guides are kind of connecting to your subconscious. So obviously, having had a Disney career, one of
Yeah.
the most notable ways that my guides communicate with me is dropping me Disney songs or talking about Disney characters or giving song references. So I'll get a lot of song references for clients, or I'll hear little bits of music as I'm connecting with their energy, or I'll get this sense of a part of a song that's connected to a different part of their energy, and they just work that way. But it takes time, right? I'm sure you know it takes time to develop, like, ooh, I call it your inlets and outlets. So like, what are the ways that spirit communicates? Like, probably didn't just like, and then I woke up one day and I realized that the entire right side of my body receives information when spirit's here, right? It's this, what was that? Skepticism, lean in. Oh, confirm, accuracy. Okay, let me try again. It's like, it's that language of how spirit communicates, but each person, to our point here, is so individual that in my experience, I would receive very clearly that breath, and then the messages would come through clairaudiently on the right side of my ear. I still get that, but now I get very deep, like in the rear of my throat chakra, right towards the base of my neck. I will get so much activation. It feels like someone's taking an electric socket and just plugging it into the back of my neck. And so I'll get like full shivers from the top to the bottom pretty much anytime I'm having higher vibrational energies that are around. I'm thinking about something and my guides are like, yes, that's it. Like I'm always in a language that took me quite a long time to develop.
Yeah, me too. It took years. I mean, when I first started, I studied with Medium Fleur and with Monica the Medium and some other great teachers. But I tell my students now, I sucked at this at first. I mean, I was not, I had moments of like, oh my God, that something came through that was undeniable. But then you're also still sifting through your humanness. And
Yes.
even now, I give readings and I tell people some of what's coming through might be from my own head. So just, we kind of have to winnow grain from chaff sometimes.
Yep.
Um, and the idea is to be mostly accurate and get rid of the rest of it because sometimes it can be hard to tell what's yours and what's spirit. It feels so similar, but
Mhm.
there are little slight energetic differences. And over time, when you practice it, and you teach this too, this is what I want to hear all about your school and what you teach,
Yeah.
and most importantly, why you teach this,
Hmm.
and why it's so important. And I want to hear about how you work with your own clients. I know that you have various modalities or different ways of working with people, but that's a big question, but you can answer it however it feels right to you.
Yeah. Okay. So to unpack,
Yeah.
I developed this school called the Sovereign Healer. And this came, one, well, definitely from my own self exploration experience, because once I got off the cruise ship in 2020, I I wanted to know how to be able to connect with other people. If he says I was going to be a healer, then, and I certainly felt resonance with that, then could I just kind of call in people's energies in the same way that I would call him in? And so I wrote on my Instagram one day, like, definitely not a Reiki healer, but would love somebody who could like try this out on me. Would you be open to like a week trial with me so I could see if I could perform some energy healing, basically? Um, and I had someone reach out and was like, I volunteer as tribute. And so I closed my eyes, I got grounded, I focused on raising my vibration. I imagined opening my crown and opening up my channel. And then I called in this person's energy, basically. This was like premature Victoria. Called in this person's energy, and I got all these interesting images and visuals and sensations, which was great. I mean, I got feedback, which was great. And I saw this image of a fireplace, and I was so embarrassed. I'm like, I can't even tell her that fireplace, like I should just not be an energy healer. Like, what am I
Hmm.
seeing? And there was this message from my grandpa coming through, like, this is an important message for her. And this was the first time I was like, oh, it's like I've never done this before. Now I need to tell this person a message, and I'm embarrassed because I think it's wrong. And so I said to her, is there any potential that you have a relationship with a fireplace? And she was like, oh my God. Like, fireplace in my family is we always sit around the fire. I'm trying to find a new home, and the fireplace is like the one thing I'm trying to find in my new home. She was in a transitionary period. It was a way that her and her family connected. She was relocating and she wanted to make sure that there was a fireplace in this new home. And I said, yeah, I felt a lot of sentimental value in it. I feel like you're in transition and change. She's like, yeah, you're literally speaking directly to me. this saying when I can't believe you're saying this, but dot, dot, dot. Like I got that message the first time I'd ever connected or attempted to connect. And this then led me again on the path of obsession to explore what it would be like to be an energy healer. And so I had no teacher in my journey for what energy healing was. I had my guides, I learned tarot, I had astrology, and then I had guided meditations where I would start to like take how they prepped the channel and basically copy it and recreate it. That's what I had.
Mhm.
But then I had a full energy healing business where people would come to me, usually like significant life changes where I was providing temporary relief. Let's call it that, because that's really what it was. People were coming in. I had a very clear ability to use the tarot cards to supplement what was also coming through to confirm for myself. So I was still developing my confidence, but I had the tarot and I could read, and they were getting such beautiful support. People were coming from all walks of life. Especially then I met my fiance. And so a lot of our connections were, in his queer community. So queer people were coming and I was able to support them through some of like their growing pains. And I had a full 6-figure business being an energy healer in my first year. Second year, my business scaled again and I was doing energy healing, but now I was also like channeling beings. So I brought through the Arcturian Council for many years. I was working with the Seventh Dimensional Council of Light. I was talking to the Pleiadians. I was connecting with the Blue Avians. Like I was connecting with all of these beings just simply by hearing someone talk about it. I was so curious. Let me see if I could do it as well. And these beings would come through. And then at the end of 2022, I had a very significant spiritual experience that was very dark. And this was the first time I had had a dark spiritual experience. So, for context, I would wake up in the middle of the night and feel like I was being choked by something. And I thought I maybe just had a bad dream. My health started to decline. I was having really significant panic attacks. Mid 20-year-old has no reasons to have these issues, can't even go out in public anymore because she's starting to have this deep feeling like she is unsafe. And this continued for months until finally I reached out to a healer that I knew when I first began my awakening back in 2019. Very remote energy healer, like not the type you'd find online, like somebody you don't even know what their birthday is. And I reached out to her and I said, I don't think I'm okay. And her response to me was, yeah, you need some support. And this is when I learned that I had had multiple nefarious entity attachments. So lower entities from multiple past lives had been hunting me down from lifetime to lifetime and had found my energy and had begun to siphon my energy. And up until this point, I honestly I had no idea what to do with this material. I didn't know whether to be like, she's insane, or why, or I'm insane, because how have I lived my entire awakening without any protection, awareness, or support for that potential in the psychic spiritual realms? Like there was nobody to talk about this. And this was only just a few years ago that this happened. I'm looking out to the psychic spiritual community saying like, has anybody ever had entity attachment experiences? And you're either super gaslit about it because they're telling you that you're low vibrational and not powerful, or two, they're telling you that we're all one. And so, again, you created it. But I had this felt sense that there was, yes, of course, there's an element of consent that involved in this, but there's also something deeper than that, which was that these beings had been hunting me down from lifetime to lifetime. I had also built a 7-figure business doing this work. I'd actually hit the milestones of my life that I dreamt of. I was had a very successful business. It actually felt more of a byproduct of power than it did about a lack thereof. And when I tried to open up that dialogue of maybe it's not because we're victims, maybe it's because we're actually powerful and there are external beings that want to extract from that, there was nobody to talk to about it. And so I became the one to kind of answer this long winded thing. This started my journey, of course, after these entities had been removed by the grace of God and the support that I had from this particular healer. My entire understanding of what doing this work looked like changed. Because now I'm thinking caution, I'm thinking removing recklessness. Now I'm thinking, how often am I opening up my field to different readers that are not 100% confident in what they're doing? How often am I going into different healings just because I think it's cool? And I removed all of it. I went from getting readings every quarter, going to see Akashic record readers, going to do all the Reiki healings, going to do all the New Age stuff to absolutely nothing to self validate. So, of course, for somebody who has had an addictive personality, that is very uncomfortable. So, there was a lot of shadow work involved. But this is what developed the Sovereign Healer methodology. The Sovereign Healer is a 9-month sovereign psychic development school where you learn the foundations of ground, shield, protect, and cleanse, how to actually meditate in an enclosed space, actually learn how to be able to hear your own inlets, how you receive spiritual energy, how to protect your vibration, and what that actually means from a place of preservation and not from a place of weakness. How distorted psychic protection has become in the eyes of those that are either not powerful enough or just are already siphoned and don't actually know that they're being siphoned. And so I talk about psychic protection from the way that nature mirrors psychic protection, which is the thorn of the rose is not there because the rose is trying to preserve the fact that it thinks it's going to die. It's to preserve the beauty of the rose. The shell of the turtle doesn't have the shell because it's afraid it's going to die. It's to preserve the integrity of the turtle. And so I started to teach psychic protection in the way that I believe nature is mirroring to us that everything in life has a preservation, like our skin is preserving our organs. And I taught people how to develop their second skin sovereignly by sitting in meditation, working with their own channel, developing discernment, challenging spirits, not allowing themselves to be open to everything, but rather being in control of what they're available for. And then from there, they just keep hitting all these extraordinary psychic sites. And so, from this nefarious experience that I had had, and realizing that, yes, absolutely, I'm not denying that consent was not involved in this. There's some element of this that was absolutely in play, but it was coming from a higher dimension than what's talked about. And it's when souls are actually advanced and powerful, and how consent can happen at such an unconscious level for most people, and how this is actually inviting in unwanted spirits. And I developed a foolproof framework where anybody who's on their awakening journey now has universal tools to prepare their energy to navigate anything in the psychic and spiritual realms.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. And, you know, I think I need to hear that too because I've been doing this work for about 5 years now,
Yep.
and I really haven't focused on grounding or protection other than setting an intention
Yep.
that during my sessions, all of the messages are coming from the highest and best good of
Yep.
everyone involved. And I say I only am available to accept
Mhm.
uh, messages or connection with high vibrational, loving, peaceful
Mhm.
beings. I call in angels and spirit guides, and yet I don't ground after. I don't. I kind of like being open.
Mhm.
Um, there is no, it's not addictive. It's a high that comes with
Yes,
connecting with the spirit world.
totally.
Talk about that.
Totally. It's like, as two recovering addicts, it's
Yes.
like it is not easy to deny, like to acknowledge the fact that it is quite. Oh, it's like thrilling to be able to connect with benevolent spirits, and it feels
Yeah.
the amount of love. And then you come into this world, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is a dense frequency." You know, especially in these times, it's like, "I'm gonna stay up here. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, this is a lot." You know, and we're trying to navigate this reality where it's so dense, and then we get to touch and feel and exist in these unconditional frequencies. It's very hard to bring it down. But what I've found actually the most strength in my own journey in is that there's Victoria the healer, and then there's Victoria, who's a queer woman who loves to hike with her two dogs, who loves music and is unbelievably human. And the more I separate that and do the shadow work around, like, well, I'm not that powerful because I'm not tapped in all the time, you know, or are people going to like me because I'm not being a puppet psychic where I'm like,
Yeah.
look what I can do. If I just like what actually feels like natural truth for me, and it's very uncomfortable to sit in that, it's the separation between the both. But they're both they're still one, they're still me. It's just when I'm here, I'm here. And when I'm there, I'm there. And now suddenly I feel like I'm living the true balance of what I believe this work is about, which is I do this work for God, but I'm also having a beautiful human experience. And what I find a lot of times with psychics is like over time, they either get hijacked from the inside out because somewhere along the way they consent to something that was not actually benevolent because they misunderstand that high vibration doesn't necessarily mean that there's no hijacking or unconscious consent involved. So it's like they prioritize high vibration, but they don't also prioritize growing discernment. So then they create loopholes because they don't challenge anything anymore because they just trust in their intention. So that happens. Or over time, the consistency of being ungrounded leads to disease. And I've had that. I couldn't walk for months on end because I was channeling these beings all the time because my low back was so blown out. My root chakra was absolutely destroyed. Having such significant panic attacks consistently, like this is the first real year since I started all of my work and had such significant, psychic experiences where I'm actually like integrated into human life. Like I had to rebalance my nervous system to be like, the world is safe. Like it's okay. My nervous system was so blown out. And I see this all the time with other psychics. It's an inevitability that there is an expiry date. And I don't want to expire. I want to be able to be open and I want to be closed. And the more I do that, the actual stronger I can be when I'm in.
Yeah, that's really well said. That's so important to find a balance
Totally.
and not live in the 5D all the time,
Totally.
because we are here for a reason. And so it's so easy to spiritually bypass or to just check out. I do it sometimes where I'm like, something that isn't my preference happens. And instead of spinning out, I just go, oh, it's fine. This is all just a matrix. It's just a simulation. Who cares?
Yeah.
And that way I don't have to really deal with feeling scared about it,
Yeah.
or panicking. I'm just kind of like, oh, well, I'm just a soul. So
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah, totally. And it's like, I think that is so important, but I also think for each person's mission, it changes based on like what the needs are. So for me, my work is to be able to speak to the masses. So I can't talk to them in 5D.
Yeah.
I have to talk to them at the dimension they understand. And even though I'm talking about very complex things, such as interdimensional warfare, entity attachments, interference, discernment, I'm talking about things that are quite challenging. I attract people that have been awakened long enough to know that they're not actually certain. They're getting attacked. They're not 100% clear about what they're connecting with, and they want more integrity and truth.
Yeah.
So I can kind of meet them still at a higher vibration, but more maturity, I guess, if you will. But even then, I have to meet it at such a level that it can spread to the world and be understood. And then for others, their job is to be a medium in the fifth dimension to be able to help those that are already like, on the path, ready to receive and can hear ascension, age of Aquarius, 5D, crystalline codes, dragons, and go, yes, I totally get it. Like we're nerding out. But the average person, even those that are, years into their awakening, still don't know what all of that even means. And so for me, a lot of that has been unpacking like, what even does 5D mean? What even does ascension mean? What even does new earth mean? Is it just something that I found because someone had like 111,000 followers and I thought, oh my God, angel numbers? And then they started talking about 5D and I'm like, I'm going there too. Like, was it just like rainbows and butterflies and I didn't actually understand the context? And if so, like, what did I need to unpack in myself? And for me, it was a lot. It was like,
Yeah.
I was just drinking the juice, girl, being like, I'm awakened, I'm enlightened, I'm going to 5D, like we're going to New Earth, like screw all this stuff that's happening in the world. And now I'm like, oh, this is an interesting game of intergalactic, interdimensional warfare that we've been experiencing for a very long time. How do we navigate this dimension of duality that we are absolutely in?
Oh my gosh. I know this part of the conversation could be a whole podcast in itself, but I really would love to hear you elaborate about that, what that means, the interdimensional warfare. And obviously, look, historically, the world has been in war. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just part of this earth, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And maybe our souls would say, well, there's some, greater reason for it. But can you talk a little bit about what's happening now? You don't have to go into anything political or anything, but just in
Yep.
terms of like, what is happening? What is happening here? Because it's really scary. Not that it
Yeah,
hasn't been in the past too, but this is like a
totally.
crisis point again.
Well, so what I've actually channeled about this is that we are not the first civilization to wake up. And so that already like knocks out the spiritual narcissism because it's like we're not actually the only people who are ever waking up. The only difference is that we are one of the only civilizations, if not the only civilization, that is aware that it's waking up. That changes things. We have eyes on ourselves, as opposed to if consciousness is just becoming conscious of itself, but it's not aware that it's conscious, then it's almost unconsciously waking up. That's not what's happening here. We are aware that we are awakening. And so the dynamic is completely different for us because now we're actually almost lucid in the dream instead of just I'm dreaming and now I'm awake.
Mm.
So for those of you who are listening, you'll understand exactly what I mean. It's totally different. We're watching what's happening in the world from a actually aware perspective. And so what I believe we are becoming aware of is the fact that on Earth as a whole, as a system, this entire planet, there has always been, for as long as we can remember, an internal conflict between what vibration this planet is meant to be. Is it ultimately a positive vibration? Is Earth meant to be a harmony planet or the God planet? Like, to me, God is all that is, the creator of everything that is created. Is it meant to be God's organic idea for Earth, which, from what I've channeled in my experience, it is a harmonized planet? Or is Earth meant to be a negatively oriented planet where people come to basically like be enslaved by their karma? It's like you come on Earth and you're basically on prison planet. And on prison planet, you're caught in reincarnation loops trying to heal. You're caught on a dense planet where all you're doing is basically suffering until hopefully, or if you're lucky, you wake up. And everything is about resistance into release. And so that's really what I have understood is this conflict between polarities on planet Earth. And what my work is, anyway, in this is to support reawakening, if you will, that natural polarity that was meant to be on the planet, which was about harmony, not about perfection, not about 12th dimension remembered in human physical vessel, but simply that we are harmonized between positivity and negativity, that we are actually harmonized between the lower and the upper chakras. Some people might say heaven and earth are balanced, right? But that ultimately we are integrated between what negative polarity has been on this planet, and we've integrated that within our system, and then the positive aspect of that polarity within our system as well. The issue with this, though, is that Earth has been quite negatively oriented for a long time. There are different extraterrestrial life forms of multiple different vibrations and dimensions that have been at conflict with Earth and the positively oriented beings for a long time about what is the way that we are going to navigate Earth's ascension. A lot of these beings have also likened to their vibration of being quite parasitic to the different souls on planet Earth. So there's a lot of siphoning from beings, souls on Earth. There's a lot of loops that Earth has been in that we are in the process of trying to detangle. It's like you imagine we're in a ball of yarn and we're trying to unravel basically layers and layers of karmic debris so that we can see the truth. And the truth is whatever the organic template was for Earth. What was God's original intention for Earth? And I believe that it was to be harmonious. And so as we can see here, we are not there yet. We are actually quite obviously not there yet. And there is so much more heightening of what I call psychic attack, for those of you who are aware of it, meaning the more we rise in this awareness and we raise our vibration, open up our awareness, develop our discernment, build our sovereignty, the more visible we become in our true essence as our soul, the more free we become on our natural path of life. Beings that have been harvesting off of our energy, off of Earth's lower dimensions and vibrations for a long time, are losing themselves. And this is showing up in chaos, conflict, war, trickery. Like, look over here, and there's all this other stuff going on, right? Manufacturing issues in the world, creating problems that were never there to try to keep the state of the world not harmonized. And so, in short, I believe that there has been for thousands of years what is it's like two parents that are fighting over who gets custody of the child. Like it's that those energies have been rubbing together and they're trying to find, what is that dance? The only difference is positivity doesn't need to fight. right? Angels don't fight back in the same way that demons do. Demons use force, angels use truth. And so the more that we're like open to our truth and there's this fight, the more we have to, hold the truth. Instead of I need to fight back, right? I need to push against. I need to fight for something. Instead, the only thing we have to do is stay in the truth of what we know to be true in this moment. Stay in our center, stay harmonized, stay as balanced as we possibly can so that we can actually help Earth come back to its organic template.
That was so beautifully said. Thank
I
you
got a
so
screenshot. That
much.
was the best way I've ever explained interdimensional warfare.
I was literally thinking from my editing perspective, like, oh, this is good. This is a clip right here. This is what I want to grab from because there's so much in it. And I want to be mindful of your time, and I am. And I just wanted to, before we go, just uh, briefly touch on, and this is like this massive, but just kind of maybe a teaser. Maybe we'll have to do another one. But just because I would have thought years ago before had my spiritual awakening that all this talk, I mean, I have seen a UFO. Now they call it is it an API? That's not what do they call it now? But I've seen it. I've seen an interdimensional being, but this was in the 80s and I didn't really process what was happening. And so now I am all about this uh that spirituality and those things that I used to think were like just man-made aircraft. Some of it is, right? Some of the drone stuff, but then now I'm so open and understanding that what I saw as a kid, which was, well, I was like a teenage, like a preteen, was this interdimensional glowing blue orb. And we didn't have any cell phones or technology that it could have come from. And it just arrived in my room and was sort of trying to communicate with me, but I was clueless because I was only 14. Um, and so now I understand, oh my gosh, that was an intergalactic being. That's
Mhm,
what an interdimensional being,
mhm,
and that they're not separate from the whole system like spirit, us humans, ETs are not really ETs. You could call us aliens, but what is going,
mhm.
I anything you want to kind of touch on in terms of like when you connect with them, how do you know who they are? And you might say, I connected with an Arcturian being. How do you know? Do you just, oh, I think that's so funny. As I said that, I just saw like a big blue light in like the corner of my eye. Um, how do they identify themselves, or what are they doing, not here, but what are they trying to accomplish by connecting with us or communicating with us?
Well, there are so many different vibrations and dimensions that these extraterrestrial life forms live in. So it's like this to answer this question in a generalized way is the same thing as trying to dissect what every person's goal is
Yeah.
and try to find a common outcome. Same energy, but just on a cosmic level. One thing I know to be absolutely true is that Earth is quite a exciting place for a lot of these beings because this is really the testing planet to see what is going to happen with these dimensional dances and what is going to happen with these souls on earth that are like, I want to volunteer as tribute to come into this chaotic battlefield and hopefully wake up in the dance of polarity at such an accelerated rate right now. And so for some ETs, it's to test on our hybrid DNA. For some ETs, it's to explore our consciousness and to understand us. For others, it's to bring through benevolent messages to support and disclosure.
That Okay, now we're back. There was
Oh, can you?
a glitch. Hold on.
No
It's coming.
surprise every
That's why
time. Ah,
that's why I was like, because we're
of course
talking
there
about
was.
them and
Of
it's
course.
their energy, or but yeah, can you just
Yep.
say kind of there was like their little glitch in there, but I'm like, I kind of felt like that was from them, spirit or beings.
Yeah, it's what I call static interference. So it happens when the vibration is high and things are happening. Like when I start to talk about things that are very significant. When I was on a podcast a few days ago in person, when I started to talk about things that are truth, things start to happen. To my
Yep.
point here, different ETs have different agendas, ultimately to try to learn and understand how we are navigating. this dimensional dance. So for some, it's about testing. For some, it's about helping disclosure. For some, it's about helping bridge our understanding. For some, it's just like, well, screw these, screw these souls. Like I need to eat off of them. It sounds gross, but it's kind of like it's true. And so different ETs and their dimensions and their natural vibrations and what they, what their origin is, what their role is, how they see the state of Earth, all have their own individual agendas.
That that's so
And
interesting. I never even
yeah,
thought of it that way.
yeah, yeah, it is. It's like, oh, that's interesting because it's not like we're Earth and we all have this, hopefully this common goal, but we're all kind of trying to find it through our own personalities. And then there's like all these ETs and like they're all benevolent. They actually have such a unique, just like us, perspective on what's going on Earth, and they have their own desires for what they would like to see for Earth.
Oh,
The beings
yeah.
that I connect with, the beings that I connect with, the way that I discern with them, I usually see their figure. So I can see them interdimensionally. Some of them I can see full form, others of them, they kind of blue orb, purple orb. I ask them to show me their true vibration. So I challenge them and I ask them to come forward and show me their truth because truth is the highest frequency here. So I challenge the truth and then they bring forward their true energy. If they give me chaos, I revoke them. If they bring truth, I'm like, okay, what are you doing? What's going on? And so that's how I really work with the extraterrestrial life forms that I work with. But I also don't ever invoke beings unless I already have a direct relationship with them.
Mm.
So I only work with my guides and then I work with one other extraterrestrial that has visited me and I actually work with to help what's going on Earth right now. And so other than that, I never actually, now that I've, of course, went through all this entity stuff and there's been so much healing around like, what does it mean to do this work? And I want control over my channel. I don't actually invoke any beings, but any being that comes through that I connect with, my guides, this other guide or otherwise, I'm always challenging them.
That's really cool, and then also knowing you have your spirit guides to sort of shield you or help protect you from any malevolent
Yes.
energies or lower vibrational energies. And
Yep.
as we were talking, and I'm getting chills now, and yeah, definitely seeing violet light around you, and definitely seeing in my own, I can see my blue orb, which when I saw it appeared not as a translucent thing, but it was a solid mass of energy that looked like
Mm.
those like globes that you touch and the electricity goes moves with your
Yeah.
hands. It was like glowing neon blue, so bright
Mm.
and so solid. I was so confused because I turned off my light and it just appeared. And it wasn't a hallucination, it
Mm.
wasn't I was wide awake, and it was dense, dense, glowing neon blue, and it sort of looked at me. I remember it sort of tilting what it would be its head, except that it was really just a ball of light, and it was looking at me curiously and in a friendly way, like a playful way,
Mm.
and then it zipped. I think, I don't remember exactly, but it was like left, right, left, and it was sort of having it was playful, and then
Yep.
I screamed because I didn't know what it was, and I had never experienced anything like this, and called my mom in, and it just zipped up and disappeared into this without anything, and I never knew what the hell happened. I was like, "What was that?" And I only sort of figured it out, like, maybe a few years ago where I was like, "What was that, though?" I mean, what could it
Mhm.
have been? And it's like, had it
Mhm.
been maybe, nowadays I'd be like, "Oh, it's probably some AI thing or some hologram or some drone or whatever." But now I know that that was
Mhm.
an energetic being that had a little personality, and it was actually very sweet.
Yep.
I could tell it was just loving, except that
Yep.
I freaked out only out of, "What is this?"
Totally.
Just didn't know what it was. Um, thank you
Yeah.
so much for I mean, I could talk to you for hours and but I just want to ask if there's anything you'd like to share about services, workshops, books,
Mm.
anything that you want to share. We'll have a link below to how to connect with you, but if there's any news you want to share or simply just where to connect with you, that's great too.
Well, if you've made it this far and you're like, she's weird, but she's my kind of weird, that's
Mhm.
great. Welcome to the welcome to the weird side. I completely trust, Shannon. I think that if the link is there, I believe that in this
Yep.
world we are quite intelligent, and I also trust in people's intuition, and I know that they'll find whatever they need to find in my world, whether that's contrast to who I am or validation in what I do. And so I think I'm cool leaving it here, but I really appreciate you offering.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I agree. The people who you're meant to help will find you one way or another. And that is
Always.
exactly how it works. I always say the same thing.
Yes.
I say, Spirit, send me the person who I can help the most with my own unique energy. If I'm not the
Yep.
medium for them, that's fine. Or if
Yep.
I, if there's anything I can do to help and I resonate, I would love for, it's, I know that they'll find me just like
Yes.
how you find your person or your friends. So
Yes.
thank you for that beautiful perspective, for sharing your time and your energy, and for just all of the work that you're doing. This has been so much fun spending time with you, Victoria.
Oh, Shannon, thank you so much for having me. I feel like we touched on so many great things, and I hope it was of service to our audience today.
I know it was. Thank you so much.